right, so we got some pretty big info here to build on my video from this morning, where we were looking at that article and the question was being asked, is Japan colluding with the FTCs, with the Federal Trade Commissions, in order to block the Xbox Activision Blizzard deal? Essentially, that these commissions were never really looking at the competition. They were acting in the best interest of Japan, especially if you take a look at their dominance within the Japanese market. And it was the JFTC going to look at how Sony operates in Japan. Now we have this article here, and it says, it's from Axios. It just dropped about a couple hours ago. It says 11 members of Congress argue Sony's unfairly hurting Xbox in Japan. Members of Congress from both sides of the aisle are pressing the Biden administration to take action on PlayStation Xbox console competition in Japan. So this is exactly what that article was talking about, because of the dominant position that PlayStation does hold. And one of the main things that when they talk about the Japanese market, specifically when it comes to PlayStation and Xbox, is that they use that high-end console market equation, where it basically shows that Sony and PlayStation own about 96 to like 98% of the market. And obviously this is excluding the Nintendo Switch because of how big of a footprint the Nintendo Switch has. If you add that in there, it's a much different story. But these trade commissions, these regulators, have created this definition of the high-end console market, which only include PlayStation and Xbox. It says, driving the news, policymakers raised concerns last week to Biden officials, saying Sony's business practices in its native Japan are blocking U.S. companies from competing in the country's gaming market and could be running afoul of U.S.-Japan trade deals. The unexpected pressure became public on Thursday when Senator Maria Cantwell pressed the U.S. Trade Representative Catherine Tai on it during a trade hearing. 10 members of the House also sent 2 letters on Thursday to Tai and Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo urging action. And this is the question, because we're looking right now at what the FTC in the United States is doing, and they are out there trying to block this deal. And it seems like they are looking at the best interests of Sony, which is a Japanese company, which for a lot of people just doesn't make any sense. And it's not just because you want these trade commissions, you want these regulators to go out and just blindly protect the companies that are of your country. What you want them to do is obviously look out for the best interests of the consumer and competition. But everything that we have seen so far, even before they went to sue to block this deal, is pointing in the direction that the arguments that Sony is making and PlayStation is making for the Activision Blizzard acquisition really do not hold up. And in no way is this deal going to be anti-competitive. In fact, it's going to drive more competition from all of the arguments that we have seen so far. And we even see the CMA shifting their view now as they went ahead and dropped all of their concerns about the console market last week. So that's why a lot of people have these questions, especially when it comes to the FTC. And as I've said in my videos, as an outsider who doesn't live in the United States, I look at it and I'm like, well, Lena Khan is on a power trip. She just wants to get her name out there. She wants her name in the spotlight. She wants to have something to do with blocking this deal or having Microsoft just make major concessions so she could put it on her resume. And it really is just political posturing, and it doesn't have really anything to do with looking at the actual facts of the case. But again, that's just my opinion on that. It says here what they are saying. Today, we write to bring to your attention the imbalanced Japanese video game market, which we are concerned may be a result of a discriminatory trade practice that could violate the spirits of the U.S.-Japan Digital Trade Agreement, states one of the letters signed by 4 Republicans from the House, including Carol Miller and Mike Carey. The Republican letter alleges that Sony PlayStation has 98% of the high-end console market in Japan, and I guess 98%, it's without Nintendo in there, signs deals designed to keep hit Japanese games from Microsoft's Xbox, and says such moves may violate Japan's antitrust laws. Of course, you can think right on the top of your head, Final Fantasy is the main one right there, because not only do they sign these deals to keep those games away from Xbox, Final Fantasy is a game that would sell extremely well on Xbox. That's guaranteed. I mean, that is a game that is mainstream in the Western market. It's a JRPG from Square Enix, but it's a mainstream game around the world. It's been in the West forever. Everybody in the West knows about Final Fantasy. It's a game that would absolutely sell well on the Xbox, and they've signed these deals to keep it off of the Xbox platform. Then goes on here and says the Japanese government's effective policy of non-prosecution when it comes to Sony appears to be a serious barrier to U.S. exports with real impacts for Microsoft and the many US game developers and publishers that sell globally but see their earnings in Japan depressed by their practices. The letter continues. A letter to Tai and Raimondo from 6 Democratic lawmakers from Washington State, where Microsoft is based, covers similar grounds. And it says here, between the lines, Article 8 of the 2019 US-Japan Digital Trade Agreement calls for the countries to enable non-discriminatory treatment of digital products, which would include games. It's less clear if it would also pertain to game consoles. But I mean, it includes games. So there has to be discriminatory treatment of those products no matter where they are being sold, right? Like they have to be able, there has to be nothing there that's anti-competitive, non-discriminatory. So the games should be selling on all the different platforms out there. And Japan is definitely using their power in being such a huge player in the Japanese market to get companies like Square Enix and these other Japanese publishers to sign these major deals because they know it really isn't going to affect them that much when they're going to be losing out on some sales in the West, but they're going to be selling like insanely in Japan. And if they can sign great deals with PlayStation also being the console that is dominant in the West right now, they're going to get the best of both worlds from both countries. Then you have the Xbox consumers who aren't getting access to a lot of these games. State of play. Sony has had a steep advantage over Xbox in Japan for decades, though the secrecy around gaming contracts obscures the underlying causes. And this is something that I've always been interested in knowing about, which is why with this entire FTC thing, if it does go to court, it kind of would be cool to see, just because we potentially would see all of those subpoena documents that Sony had to provide to the FTC come out, which would include third-party deals, and we would potentially see exactly what's in those deals with Square Enix, because there's a lot of secrecy. There's a lot of questions as to what happens. What does Sony do to get all of these crazy deals? Because they're just, there's tons out there. And what does Square Enix do? What deals do they go out and sign? Because they have just deals all over the board. Games coming out just on PlayStation, games coming out on PlayStation and Nintendo and not on Xbox, games coming out everywhere, putting games into Game Pass, all of that type of stuff. It says here, Sony does occasionally secure major platform exclusives, as with Square Enix's Final Fantasy 16, a Japanese-made game expected to be big with Japanese and global audiences. And that's only slated for PlayStation, no Xbox. But Japan's console market is also not quite a two-horse race. Nintendo, excluded from the definition of high-end consoles cited by the policymakers, crushed Sony and Microsoft. And that's the thing. Nintendo is bigger. Nintendo is the dominant one there, but they don't include it in that definition. The big picture, the heat on Sony is unmistakably coinciding with the Japanese company's own pressure on antitrust regulators to block the Microsoft $69 billion bid to buy Activision Blizzard. And Sony's anti-competitive tactics deserve discussion, and we welcome further investigation to ensure a level playing field in the video game industry. And this is from a Microsoft spokesperson, David Cuddy, told that to Axios. And while Microsoft isn't saying just how involved it was in orchestrating this push, its government affairs team has discussed these issues with members of Congress. But that's what Axios understands here. And a Sony rep did not reply to a request for comment. And this is something that I think Sony may have not anticipated with their major push against this deal, especially now as we are seeing that there is a high likelihood that it is going to get approved. Specifically, we have this article here from Seeking Alpha, who has now said that the chances that this deal does get approved has been raised to 70% from 50% at Citi. And this follows everything that has happened with the CMA after they have provisionally concluded that the proposed deal would not reduce competition in the console gaming market. So this is huge. I mean, all of these analysts are now raising the percentage of chance that this deal will close. 70% is a pretty high chance compared to, again, 50%, you're just flipping a coin, but now it's on this side that this deal will go through. So I don't know if Sony anticipated all of this type of stuff happening. I think they were sitting there thinking that they have a case, they have a good chance to push this thing, at least get really good concessions made. But now everything is seemingly backfiring on Sony with the CMA stuff the other day, where there is really no argument now for Call of Duty on consoles. So Microsoft can essentially just do what they want with Call of Duty with the PlayStation console, but they are going to put it on PlayStation. Everything is going to be parity because it would make no sense for them not to do it. But hey, they could do whatever they want. And now they have this stuff going on where their own government may eventually be looking into Sony and into PlayStation. Now, it continues here and says, what's next? In their letters, House members asked that the Sony issue be raised with the Japanese government and identify additional barriers to American companies in assessing the Japanese gaming market. At Thursday's Senate hearing, the trade rep Tai promised Senator Cantwell to look into things. This one is new for me, she said. So there you have it. That is a big, I guess, revelation from previously it just being Maria Cantwell. Now there are 11 members of Congress who are arguing that Sony is unfairly hurting Xbox in Japan. Everything is turning, maybe like 2 months ago, look the opposite, where it looked like this deal may get blocked. And with everything that has been coming out, things seem to be turning in the favor of Xbox. But I will leave that there, guys. Let me know what you think about this. Do you think this will do anything to Sony, or is this just, again, political posturing for them to make it look like they're trying to do something, but nothing will come out of it? If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that thumbs up. If you're new here, hit that subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. We'll be right back.